Welcome to Hot or Not, where in this video, well, you gotta start somewhere. And if you wanna start with a BMW, this is your entry-level BMW to start with if you want a sedan. This is the brand new BMW 228i Gran Coupe. There's a lot of little hidden secrets in this vehicle, and what it all adds up to is this a real BMW or not? Coming up in this episode of Hot or Not. So when looking at the wheels, tires, and brakes on the 228i Gran Coupe, we have the optional M Sport package on this car, which let us go from the standard 17-inch wheels, which is kind of incredible today, right? To think 17s are standard, up to the optional, on this car, 18-inch wheels. We have a 225/40 18, and it's a Bridgestone Turanza, which is an all-season tire. So this is not a great track package by any stretch of the imagination, you know, not that any of the car really is. We also have four-wheel vented disc brakes, of course, with one-piece sliding calipers all the way around. All right, underneath the hood of the 228i, this is where things get interesting. Because if you notice, the engine is not going this way, it's going this way. It's transverse. So this platform, even though 228, you might be thinking this is based on a 2 Series, like a 235 or a 228 BMW sedan, it's not. It's actually based on the X1, X2 mini platform. And so we get a transverse engine and a front-wheel drive platform in a BMW car. So that's very interesting. Now, in the US, you can only get this vehicle all-wheel drive with BMW's xDrive system. So technically there are no front-wheel drive BMW sedans in the US, but in Europe you can get it as a front-wheel drive vehicle. So that's just kind of food for thought when you're thinking of this car. Now, what are the pluses and minuses? Well, this is a fairly simple platform in that it's, you know, front-wheel drive based platform, so it's cheaper to build, brings the price point of the car down, hopefully. But the downside, BMW is known for its 50-50 weight distribution, and every car is supposed to be within 1% of that. This car is not. It has 54% of its weight on its nose. That's still pretty good for a front-wheel drive based car, but 3 or 4% is a pretty big difference. So the transverse engine under the hood of the 228 Gran Coupe is a 2-liter 4-cylinder, twin-scroll turbocharged, and it makes 228 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. Now the engine is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission with, of course, BMW's xDrive system being standard in the US, and the vehicle weighs 3,534 pounds. In every car we test, we put the car in sport mode for track driving. We also disable any of the electronics. Not only traction control, stability control, but these days even the car's various active safety systems where you might have auto braking or things like that. So anything that can be disabled for track use should be disabled. Not only does it hurt track time, but it could cause a false positive where you actually get some of the active safety systems to find something on the track and cause a jolt of brake or a response from the car, where it's just because you're driving in a track situation, which to the car sure looks like an accident avoidance maneuver. So that's why you turn this stuff off. And again, it helps with lap time, helps with consistency, and you can really see how well the car is designed and how well the chassis works without any electronics masking any of that stuff, which tends to happen quite a bit. So here in the 228i, basically sport mode, and sport mode will just give us the ability to, you know, stiffen up things, throttle response. Very typically, if the car has any sort of adaptive shocks, those get stiffer. So sometimes it changes even differential settings if the car has some sort of electronic differential or a torque vectoring differential. So sport mode's very important. Then, of course, we're going to turn stability off, and that usually is a hold of a button, though some manufacturers require incredible mental gymnastics to get stability control off. With a BMW, it's relatively easy. And we also, of course, want to run it in manual mode as well. So when I drive the car, I'm going to, of course, pull it into drive, put it over to manual, and I'll go up and down through the gearbox. That's about as good as it gets for me these days, since not many manufacturers make manual gearboxes. I'm always happy to get to drive one, but a lot of times today I'm just pushing forward or back or pulling on some paddles on a steering wheel. Now, if you want to bring your own car out and have some fun, come out to IMI Motorsports Park. They've got everything you can possibly do in a car out here, from drifting to time trials to all sorts of different types of events, plus go-karts. And that's just the paved track itself. They also run motorcycles out here too. Speaking of motorcycles, they also have a full motocross course as well. So IMI Motorsports Park, great place to come out and play in any sort of vehicle.
The 228 Gran Coupe, a front-wheel drive based X-Drive car. Wow, that's a lot of understeer there. It seems to be reasonable in transitions or going into the turn, but once you're in the turn, you get a lot of understeer. It's not very fast. And it has no grip. Like, these are skinny all-season tires, so we're losing quite a bit everywhere. Just trying to get this car to turn, because the tires are just, they're not there. Just understeer, 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 understeer. A little pictogram is showing we're all-wheel drive, but the car just understeers everywhere. So I mean, that's the thing. You think about BMWs and their 50-50 weight distribution, and what's that do for you? Good example. You know, once you start putting that weight towards the front, you're going to get more and more understeer. And then when you start making the tire narrower, because it's an entry-level car, and then you're going to make the tire an all-season, not a summer tire, all those things are going to contribute to make the understeer worse and worse and worse, and that's what we ended up having. I can tell the overall balance is okay, because when I trail brake it in or put it in transition, the rear end is right there and playful, so that was good. It's just that we're looking at the base model of this thing with only the M Sport package with the upgraded wheels, but still a 225 all-season tire. So keep that in mind. If you like, this is not necessarily obviously a track car, but it's also not particularly fun to, you know, on a mountain road kind of situation either, because it's just not a very grippy, interesting car.
Well, Paul, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news, and they're both the same, really. The good news is you beat the i3.
Yes!
The bad news is you barely beat the i3. 11107.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is your entry-level cheap lease BMW. It's got some basic BMW bones to it. Like I said, the balance isn't terrible, but it's on such a skinny, hard tire, and it has, you know, an extra 3 or 4% weight on its nose, and 228 horsepower and over 3,500 pounds to haul around. So when you add all that stuff up together, even having that propeller badge on the hood is not going to perform a miracle.
Yeah, it seems like a good car to take on vacation, but not to necessarily go carving the canyons.
Yeah, and I think it's like an entry level, like, I got a BMW, woohoo, kind of thing. But there's obviously a lot of levels of BMW above this thing.
Yeah. All right.
All right, now that we've taken the 228 Gran Coupe around the track, here's what I think about it. First of all, it's based on a platform that is kind of unique to BMW in a sedan form. Here we've got a transverse engine in a BMW car. And as I mentioned, in Europe, they actually have a front-wheel drive car that is a BMW. Of course, in the US, we get X-Drive, which is great. But what we end up with is not a really well-balanced vehicle for coming out and driving around the track, and that's what we do here on Hot or Not. So with that extra few percent of weight on its nose and those skinny all-season tires, it had quite a bit of understeer to it and not really kind of that ultimate driving machine dynamics that we've come to expect from BMW. But at that price point, and for what you're getting, I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable, prestigious, premium daily driver. Just not a track car.
So Paul, is it hot or not?
It is definitely not hot.
As always, that's Paul.
And this is Roman.
And Roman saying thanks for watching, and check out tflcar.com for more news, views, and the Stig reviews. This is the American Stig. How cool is that? Ciao.